Hey everyone, it's Mark, and I just sat down a little while ago to work on my film again, and got a couple of things over here. I've got some hands which are on the end of wire, and you can see I've taken some dowel rods and attached them to the wire by twisting some craft wire around the dowels and applying some epoxy on there. Got two of them. And the hands are cast out of clay, so I'm going to have to repair those and make them look nice and add clay over this section to so it looks like the arms are extended outwards. And the shot calls for the camera to be where this camera is essentially, and the hands will be in and working on untying some ropes, kind of like if you can imagine if the camera was angled exactly like this. So this here is really wobbly. I'm probably, once I get the camera set up, I'm gonna probably stabilize this with maybe some more dowel rods or something. I'm not really sure what yet. I could even put some clay, like a ball of clay under here, and that would help stabilize it. It's just attached to this piece of wood, which I can slide around and move where I need it to be. And it's sturdy enough to hold the hands in place. Like I said, they're really springy, so I don't really care for that very much. But and then we have Ruble, who the other day what I tried to do was to take a straight pin and put epoxy on it, and I cut the feet off. So I can get in focus here. I cut the feet off by taking some small scissors like these and cutting around the foam latex. And I put the epoxy on the tip of this pin and tried to work it inside between the wire and the square brass tubing. Oop, I just dropped my pin. And you can see there's actually some epoxy, maybe not in this video, but there's some epoxy around the edges of this brass tube. But like I said, the baking process or just age or something, I'm not really sure what it is, the epoxy I applied to the lead wire and inserted into this brass tubing didn't hold. And there's some tricks that you usually use where you flatten the end of the lead wire a little bit, you crimp it with the pair of pliers, and it's really snug inside of this square piece. And that worked. It didn't twist, but it had a little bit of wobble. And the epoxy seems to just be, I don't know, it's not really working out so well. And it was just a 5-minute epoxy, I guess. But didn't care for this brass piece. Maybe the brass piece on the inside had some oils or something, and so it just didn't latch on to the interior. There's a few ways it can become loose, but I'm still thinking it had something to do with the baking process, which I think caused the epoxy to just become brittle or something, and or rubbery. I'm not sure. So I need to, essentially I got this other ankle which I tried to repair also, and it's not too bad off, but I'm going to try and pull it off as well and re-epoxy it in place with fresh epoxy, just so I know that it's as secure as it can possibly be. And I don't know if in the last video if I mentioned this, but when I pulled him off of the base here, because this latex is about, I think 5 years old, somewhere in there, it was deteriorating in here. And you can see how, kind of like the inside of an apple, when oxidation occurs, it turns brown. The same thing happens with latex when it breaks down, and so you can see where a lot of this latex here just kind of through humidity and just age, it got brown and is starting to deteriorate. So I have some sheet latex I'm going to put over this. Going to have to glue it in place with Pros-Aid and maybe some Cabasil powder just to fill in these cracks. And Cabasil is just like a glass, microscopic glass beads. It's a little bit dangerous, I understand, to breathe in, but we're going to fill in all these little crevices to make it nice, put a piece of latex over it and repaint it. And so that's what I'm gonna do. So that's Rubles. My next task with Ruble here. And also, I was just kind of sketching around. I thought that maybe we can make a new logo for Zombie Pirate Tales, and so that's what I drew. But you know, I think it's too complicated and doesn't really read to your eye well as the word zombie. So I think at a distance it might be kind of tough to figure out what this is. So here's the colored version that I colored in the computer. Probably not going to use it, but it was kind of fun just to try a new technique in drawing. And I think Webster Colcord has the same sort of technique where the exterior of the character has a thicker line while the interior lines are thinner. Kind of a neat style. So anyway, I'm going to get back to work on Ruble and show you guys what he looks like when he's all done. Okay, so what I've done is I just cleaned off his ankles. What I did was I pulled the ankles out of their wire tubing sections in the feet, or the ankles, and from there I took some pliers and I basically cracked off any epoxy that was on the wire itself and re-crimped the wire so that it would better adhere to the tubing. Now what I noticed was the ankle tube was a little bit large for the wire, and when I crimped the wire, it didn't really fit snug inside there, and so that was definitely that's bad. I'm not sure why I used that size tubing. Maybe I was out of smaller tubing, or figured that the epoxy would make up for the difference. But anyway, this is the 5-minute epoxy right here, and it's just like a 2-part liquid that comes in a syringe that has the consistency of honey, and you just mix it up. And I've got his head leaning up against a piece of foam, and he's kind of in this position because I'm thinking if I laid him down, the epoxy would want to drip towards the back, and I didn't really want that. So looking at it kind of close here, I've got that foam latex in the ankles bent underneath the feet, so I can kind of put those shoes on as a shoe by just rebending them up, and then I'll connect those sections to with the Pros Aid right here where you see this crack or this cut. So anyway, I gotta wait for this to harden, and then I can test it out and make sure that his ankles work well. And if they do, that's great, because this is the one thing holding me back from starting animation are these feet. So we're gonna do that after this hardens. I'm gonna give it probably a good hour. I don't want to rush it because, you know, if I rush, sometimes you do that, and you know, it makes things not so good during animation. And I really don't want to have to worry about this falling apart during animation. So hopefully this will do it, and we'll talk about that after it hardens. Alright, so the epoxy hardened, and you can see here I can touch it. It's really hard, and the stick that I had in there is solidly into the epoxy. And so I tested the feet on Ruble, and they don't even budge. So I know the ankles are going to be extra strong now without any problems. And what I need to do next is take some of our Pros Aid. And this is actually, I've had this for a long time. It lasts a long time when you buy it. I guess this is like maybe not even a pint. Let's see here, it doesn't say. But it's pretty small. But it goes a long way. And what I need to do is take a brush and dip it in water. And also this water is cold, because when you use Pros Aid, if you put Pros Aid on here and this is hot water and you dip it in there, the Pros Aid basically hardens right on your bristles and ruins them. So we're going to apply Pros Aid all to the entire foot, wherever there is any kind of degradation, and we're going to try and patch it with some latex sheeting, which is here. And what you do is you want to wait for the Pros Aid to become tacky and then stick it on, and when it sticks you trim it, and then we're going to mix some Pros Aid 50-50 with acrylic paints, which is going to be just black, and we're going to paint it up. So The other thing I gotta do is put some Prozade into this crack area here, and when it gets tacky, I'm gonna push these parts together. I'm gonna stretch this latex and attach the two parts and rejoin them, and hopefully that'll work. But if not, I might have to fill this with a little cotton or some sponge rubber like this stuff here, and make it nice and conformed to the shape that it's supposed to be. And yeah, so we're gonna see how that turns out. I'm gonna get started, and when it's done, I will take some more video. And I just want to show you guys what Cabosil is. Cabosil is this microscopic powder, and it's made from little glass beads. And I've heard it's kind of dangerous to breathe this stuff, so I don't really like to use it very often. But you can see here, I did our first layer of Cabosil and Prozade, which is the it's got some latex in here and other components. And so you mix the two together, and I coated this. There was a crack left in between the top and bottom parts of the ankle, and I couldn't get it to close properly, so I filled it with Cabosil, and it turns into a it kind of shrinks a bit, so you had to add lots of coats. But you can see here it kind of turns into a gooey, flexible material, just kind of like the latex itself. So it fills holes. I'm gonna try to fill some of these holes in his feet, because when I add the sheeting over the foot, I want it to be flat. And but you can see kind of what the Cabosil does. And this is before I paint it, so it doesn't look really pretty right now or anything. But you can see how that gap right here was filled in, right in here. So I am gonna work on this some more. I'm gonna mix the Prozade in a little bit, you know, until it's like a paste with our Cabosil powder, and put it back in there and clean it up. Alright, so I had just mixed up some of our Cabosil with the Prozade, like I mentioned, and you can see it's kind of like toothpaste in consistency. And so that's what I used to put into the ankles again. And you can see when it's wet, it's actually kind of a white color, and when it dries, it's clear. I also put on our Cabosil underneath the feet to even out all those little holes and whatnot that occurred because of the deterioration of the latex from 5 years of age of this puppet. So I put the latex sheeting over it, and although it's wet underneath there, this should dry because latex can breathe. So all the moisture from the Prozade should evaporate out of here, and this should all become firm within like 24 hours, hopefully. And so, that's pretty much what it looks like. And you can see also I painted the whole thing with Prozade as well, just to kind of strengthen the surface of this latex. And so we'll have to wait 24 hours, and then we're going to paint it and see how it turns out. Alright, so I mixed up some clay, and I noticed that this original puppet that I had, where Rubles says something along the lines of, now who put that there? That they must be crazy. So I made this puppet just for that particular shot, because he was laying or sitting down like this, and the clay itself was an off-white kind of ivory / brown / just muddy kind of color, and so I matched that on my latex puppet. You can see back there, and it looks pretty crappy on this camera right here, but it's not going to look quite like that when I stick it under some super bright lights. Most of that's going to be washed out, but I thought that was the color I went for, just to kind of compensate for the color being white and maybe there being, you know, a hot spot on his shirt. So then I remembered it looked like it kind of oxidized, and so I cut a little piece off the back here and just kind of extended it down and looked at it and noticed that the color was definitely a brighter white color. And what I think happened was is I used olive oil to smooth out this clay at the time, and the reason being is because mineral oil used to give me these blisters on my fingers, like really tiny ones. And I found out a solution to that was to dissolve that oil and clay off my hands, because it's sticky, right? So clay has waxes in there, and when it gets on your fingers, even if you use soap, it doesn't really get off. So the solution was to put this alcohol on there, and every time I'm done sculpting something, I just put some on in the palm of my hand and rub my fingers in that alcohol and get them really clean. And I haven't had that problem, so it seems like this is the solution. And so anyway, what I did is I mixed up this clay, and it's not the same color as the ruble here. It's a lighter color, and so I made these arms that are going to be in a shot. I'm going to rebend this wire here on the base, and they're going to untie the ropes, as I probably mentioned before. So they work great. You know, the solder wire I used here in the hands, you know, you can get some really subtle movements out of these. It's great. You can see from the side, here's what the hands look like. I can just bend it, I guess. So nice and clean looking and so forth for the shot. I'm going to put some plastic wrap over these and make sure that, you know, no dirt gets on them. I like everything to be as, you know, clean and perfect as I can get it before I animate. That's just kind of a rule everybody should follow, I guess. As you can see, this guy here has been animated, and you know, there's some of the problems where you get cracking in clay. Like here's the shoulder where it cracked, and his mouth smudged his little tie here, and yeah, here's the. How did I shoot this anyway? I think I shot it like this, so you don't see those wires. Yeah, something like that. But anyway, also you can see here that I did the repairs to the feet, and you can see that I trimmed all the latex, and it's still wet underneath. Underneath there's the Cabasol and Prozaid, and it's slowly drying out of there. But once it's dry, I'm going to repaint those, and hopefully we can start animating soon. Okay, so here are Rubles' new feet. I added on the latex sheeting, and basically, you know, everything worked out well. The ankles are repaired and repainted, and I just have some baby powder on there, so it looks a little bit dusty. I'm gonna probably take some rubbing alcohol and clean some of that off later on, but you know, because it's a little bit excessive, especially in the cracks. I don't know. Maybe I can. Let's see here. Well, I have to fix that up. But anyway, there you have it. Now, I think the ankles are going to be strong. I'm going to put some tie downs under them on our little makeshift table here. So I'm going to put these under there and screw them in and see how he holds up. Alright, so I just put some tie downs under here and tested it out. And you know what? There's like almost no wobble at all in those ankles now. What I did notice, though, is that in the arms and pretty much everywhere else, it's a little bit like the joints. It's like a systemic problem with that epoxy that holds all these parts together. You know, there's some looseness going on in here. So, I mean, I know I can animate this just fine because it does hold its position, regardless of that little wobble. But let's see about the head. Well, the head is okay. I mean, because that's a separate piece. But you know, the ankles are good because I fixed those. But you know, the epoxy. You know, I guess in the future I've learned a little lesson here that really epoxy doesn't hold up in an oven when you bake it. And I don't know if my friend, you know, what temperature he baked this latex at, but I don't think he overcooked it or anything. I think the temperature is just too much for the epoxy. So anyway, but this puppet is basically just about done. I'm probably gonna change the color slightly of his shirt once again. I might shoot some tests first, like take a snap picture of this foam latex and see what it looks like on camera and make sure it matches the other clay colors that I've sculpted him in. But I'm thinking that because, like I said about the previous ruble, this one here, that I think the color basically became darker, more muddy from oxidation. And so since I matched that oxidation with that, let's see if I can see it. This camera, it's too bright. It has some warm tones in here, so I might want to cool those warm tones down slightly. But anyway, there he is, and just about ready to get started animating.